The Economist has put out this article that is a pretty heavy swing against veteran benefits. And really quick, before people flip out on this one, The Economist means nothing. And every single year, we see the Congressional Budget Office, or the CBO, show the numbers, so to speak, on cutting veteran benefits. So what we're going to do is pull up this article and give it a read. Obviously, The Economist leans the other way than Trump. Some would say anti-Trump, okay? And so you're going to see language that no matter what the circumstances are, the president is bad, president-elect. Just like how we see on the other side, no matter what the circumstances are, other media will say that Biden is bad, okay? So food for thought, keep that in the back of your mind. But here's The Economist. What a title, right? American veterans now receive absurdly generous benefits. An enormous rise in disability payments may complicate debt reduction efforts. Okay. And so let's just give this a read, all right? Donald Trump delights in projecting strength, meaning he loves America's armed forces. During his first term, the president-elect signed legislation to spend more on defense before proclaiming that he had accomplished the military. On the campaign trail, he doubled down, blah, 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 blah. He spent money. Okay, just like everyone else. When it comes to the Department of Veteran Affairs, now this part's what matters, these two instincts may be in tension. The department's budget had surged over the past 2 decades, rising from $86 billion in today's dollars in 2000 to $336 billion this year. That's a lot of money. It now receives almost 3 times as much as the Department of Transportation. That's irrelevant. I don't even know why they would say that. Remarkably, this boom has occurred despite a nearly 1/3 decline in the veteran population, which has fallen from 26 million to 18 million. Annual spending per veteran as a consequence has risen 6-fold. Really quick, veteran benefits have risen over the past 2 decades, okay? Simply because the global war on terror. Turns out when you send a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds to fight a war that's meaningless and you can't win, and if you're wondering, yes, we lost the war, turns out they come back with issues wrong with them, okay? Who would have thought? Anyways, Mr. Musk is zeroing in on discretionary spending, which includes programs such as the department's medical services. But the main driver of its spending surge is mandatory outlays for disability compensation. Between 2000 and 2024, such payments ballooned from $26 billion to $159 billion. Last year alone saw a 70% or 17% jump. In the department's latest budget request forecast, that compensation will soar $185 billion over the next 2 years. So all this language we see, and we know The Economist is nothing, okay? And if you're curious on if Trump is cutting veteran benefits, the answer is no, right? If you're looking at VA healthcare programs under DOGE that are authorized or that are not authorized and still funded, yeah, those are on the chopping block for sure. But man, although we know The Economist doesn't mean anything, this is some very strong language that I don't even like reading. I don't even want to see it. Okay. The current system was introduced during the First World War. It provides tax-free monthly payments to soldiers who are injured or sick owing to their service. From 1960 to 2000, roughly 9% of veterans qualified for payments, typically from ailments such as hearing loss or burns. You know, the reason why that number is so low is because service members and veterans then, there are still Vietnam veterans right now who still don't know about their benefits. Crazy. The department assigns a rating from 0 to 100 based on the severity of disabilities. In 2000, the average rating was 30%. Monthly payments averaged the equivalent of $975. Today, few qualified for the top tier. The modern program bears little resemblance to its original form. This year, 6 million veterans, or a third of the total, qualified for payments with an average monthly benefit of $2,200. That's about 90%. Okay, 80% with dependents, really. Veterans may file claims for an unlimited number of disabilities and appeal against decisions as often as they wish. That is very misleading. You still need the big three. The average rating has climbed above 60%, and 1 in 4 disabled veterans now receive the once rare 100% rating. Such a designation ensures a generous $4,000 monthly payment for life with no conditions attached. That's not true. Starting at the age of 25, a former soldier could earn well over $2 million in present value terms. Yeah, they would also have very severe mental health conditions, probably sleep apnea at 25, not being obese, is probably going to require back surgery and knee surgery again at the age of 25. So what are they really saying here? Why has this happened? From 2001, the department began to broaden its list of presumptive conditions, where officials automatically assume the problem is service-related, to include ailments such as type 2 diabetes, allowing any veteran with a disease to qualify for compensation. Again, this is also not true. That's not true. You're really looking at the Vietnam era if you're going back that far. It certainly wasn't the post 9/11 generation. They are referencing the PACT Act, okay, which obviously includes Agent Orange for Vietnam era veterans and Shield Storm. Okay, don't forget those wars. The reasoning for such expansion is not always robust. For instance, a department-funded study found only limited evidence linking herbicide exposure to Vietnam type 2 diabetes. In 2022, the President Joe Biden's PACT Act expanded eligibility further, with illnesses such as asthma and chronic rhinitis gaining approval, as some soldiers had picked up the conditions from burn pits in Afghanistan and Iraq. Oh, this keeps... Usually I summarize articles. There's only 3 more paragraphs left. This just keeps getting worse, and I wanted to read this whole thing for this reason so you can see this language. Once on the payroll, veterans usually remain beneficiaries for life. The stigma around collecting payments has faded in recent decades. Online videos with tips, hey, look at that. They said something good about how to boost your disability rating are widespread. It is common for veterans to start the program at 50% disability rating for, say, sleep apnea linked to service stress, only to then add more disabilities and have the rating increase to 100% within a few years. It's a program that helps a lot of people who deserve it, but getting on the program becomes an escalator to higher disability ratings and compensation, says Mark Dugan of Stanford University. Once you qualify, you have an incentive not to get better. This part I would agree with. Okay? The world of VA disability is the bad is good and the good is bad. Okay? That's a can of worms right there. I'm not going to open up right now. Okay, it's unclear if the spending is even benefiting veterans. Research by Mr. Dugan and co-authors find that disability compensation has reduced employment. Disability compensations aren't supposed to raise employment. With 1 in 5 new recipients leaving the workforce after the change in 2001. As nearly 2 million additional working age men have gone on the rolls since then, this implies 400,000 may have been discouraged from work. A new study by David Silver in 2022, Dan of Princeton University, and Jonathan Zhang of McMaster University found that extra compensation had failed to boost veterans' mental and physical health. I mean, turns out money doesn't cure mental health or physical health. I mean, duh. Whatever funds were spent on that study, I could have told you that right now. Indeed, suicide rates have increased relative to comparable non-veterans. Okay, I wouldn't make that correlation personally. I would say suicide rates have increased because of a failed war, a meaningless war where people died. Okay. To rein in costs, the focus of the department's mission, policymakers could take a page from the CBO's recommendations. No, they cannot. The nonpartisan scorekeeping advises narrowing eligibility for disability compensation to veterans with severe service-connected conditions, lowering benefits for some veterans and introduce a means test. Reducing payments to former soldiers will never be popular, but it would be wise. America's veteran obsession has gone too far. What a way to end this article right here. Yeah, I mean, so that's the Economist article. I'm going to link that below in the pinned comments. In case you missed it, no, veteran benefits aren't being cut. We see this actually every single year, depending on who's in office. The CBO recommends cuts. It's just a numbers game, okay? They recommend cuts to the Department of Defense, and we know that the Department of Defense is not going to cut spending. But, man, some really strong language there, and not a way I want to start my Saturday morning.